Mindset AI presents LANA'S Triumph, a love that hurts to remember. This is a story that happened in the mid-80s just after I left school. I was biding my time, waiting for my call-up into the South African Defence Force in July of that year. I had found myself a part-time job in the city centre, and had to commute back and forth by bus from Van der Bijl Square, Johannesburg's main bus depot. I was staying with my mother in the suburb of Barario, near to the famous landmark of Northcliffe Ridge. The bus was usually quite full already by the time we got to the parking lot on Anderson Street, where one of the regular passengers usually caught the same bus as me. Normally I sat on the top deck of the bus with the rest of the smokers, so I only caught a glimpse of her as the vehicle pulled up to the stop. One thing that I did notice was that she always stood alone. Even if there was a sizable crowd at the stop, she would still distance herself from them. She also took no notice of anyone around her, and always got on last. She was quite tall and very thin. I never saw her face, but knew that she had shoulder-length dark brown hair that usually looked somewhat disheveled, even though she wore it in a ponytail. One afternoon our bus was a single-decker instead of a double. Luckily it was not as full as usual, so we could all fit in without anyone having to stand. The girl alighted the bus at Anderson Street as she normally did, and sat down in the seat next to the window in front of me. Even though there was someone else sitting next to her, she hardly took any notice. She just stared out the window at the world going by. I knew instinctively that something was wrong, very wrong, but felt that it would be too much of an intrusion if I were to ask her. I mean, if she did not even want to speak to the person next to her, how much less would she feel comfortable talking to me? Almost a week later, the same situation arose, only this time I was in one of the seats near the back of the bus. Here the place in front of where I was sitting faced me, rather than in the same direction as mine. As it happened, the girl came and sat in the seat in front of me. It was clear by the expression on her face that she was on the verge of crying. Her mascara was smudged, and showed tear marks on her cheeks, despite her best efforts to wash them off. The urge to ask if she was okay became stronger by the minute, kept back only by the fear of how she would react. The bus had just driven past Wits University when I finally plucked up the courage. I leaned forward and asked, "Are you all right?"
"I'm fine. Just fine."
We did not speak a word to one another until I reached my stop and was getting ready to get off. I noticed that she was also disembarking. Usually there was a small group that exited with me, so I had never realized that this was her stop as well. As we headed towards the block of flats where I lived, she at last turned to me.
"Thanks for your concern."
"No problem." She then crossed the road that passed our apartments, and disappeared into the flats opposite. And so it happened that we became friends over time. I noticed that there were days when she did not feel like talking, and would appear somewhat distant. Some days she would not be on the bus at all, and there were times that I did not see her for a week or more. In general, however, we were on pretty good terms with one another. I learned that her name was Lana Donahue, and that she worked as a receptionist at a doctor's rooms downtown. I began to look forward to our trips home together on the bus. Regardless of whether it was a single or double-decker, I would sit in the same seat so that she could sit opposite me, and we would talk and make jovial conversation all the way until our destination. I really felt that this was something special. Having had to say goodbye to my high school sweetheart because she was going back to Canada, I had experienced an emptiness that I now felt was being filled at last. Part of me, however, was very aware of the dangers of being involved in a relationship on the rebound, so I had decided that whatever this was going to turn out to be, it would have to develop at its own speed. One Friday I asked Lana if she would go to a movie with me the next day, and was very pleased when she said that she would love to. Having established that both of us were James Bond fans, we decided to see the latest release in that series, as it was showing at Cresta Center, which was close enough for us to walk there. After our first real date, we spent more and more time in each other's company, while still keeping something of a distance because neither of us were really ready to go to the next level. The closest we ever came was holding hands as we walked together. Then, one day, disaster struck. It was a Saturday, my day off, and I was still in bed when the phone rang. Mum was still working part-time at the church bookshop, so I was alone in the flat. I answered the call, and a stranger was on the other side of the line.
Mr. Biggs, this is Carl Strauss. I'm Lana's neighbor. I'm afraid there's been a terrible incident. Lana had to be rushed to Samton Clinic in the early hours of this morning.
My heart sank down into my toes. Half of me did not want to know the answer. Why? What's happened?
She tried to kill herself.
The reply totally stymied me. What? How?
She slit her one wrist. It's not the first time either. I thought you knew.
Knew what?
Lana suffers from SID, or self-injuring disorder. In other words, she's a cutter.
I know what SID is, but why?
That's not for me to tell. It would be better if you heard it from her when the time is right.
Even though I was a self-professed agnostic at the time, I remember starting to pray as I left to catch a bus to Randburg, and then walked the distance from the bus terminus to the clinic where Lana had been admitted. It was then that something dawned on me that I had never really noticed before. Ever since I first saw Lana, she always wore long sleeves. Regardless of how hot or how cold the weather was, she had a long-sleeved t-shirt on or a jacket. Now I knew why. She was hiding the scars on her wrists. When I arrived, I found out which ward she was in. I went to the gift shop and bought her a small bunch of flowers, hoping that they would cheer her up a little, and went to visit her. The moment she saw me, Lana burst into tears.
I'm so sorry, Tristan. I should have told you earlier. I didn't expect you to find out like this.
I did not reply. Instead, I sat down beside her bed and held her as she wept. Only once she had calmed down did I respond. It's okay. At least you're still alive.
I never meant for it to go this far. I guess the knife was just too sharp, so it cut too deeply.
I was going to ask her why she did it in the first place, but then decided that I would wait until she was ready to tell me herself. For now I reckon that she needed all the moral support she could get. When it was time for me to leave, I asked the sister on duty if Lana's parents had come to visit. Her response left me with more questions than answers.
No, and I don't expect them to either. The only other visitor she has had is her aunt.
I had never really asked Lana about her family, so I had only assumed that her parents lived elsewhere. She also did not speak of them at all. The only thing I did know was that she used to live in Pretoria and had gone to Pretoria Girls' High School. Lana was discharged from hospital a week later. She phoned me the day before to inform me, and to inquire if I would not mind asking my mother to come and collect her to bring her home. Without really thinking about it, I asked, and my mum agreed. She knew that Lana and I were close friends, and that she had been in hospital, though I had not told her why. The following lunchtime, we went to fetch Lana. She still had a dressing on her wrist, but it was covered by her gown, so Mum could not see it. I had said that she had accidentally injured herself, and that was why she had been rushed into the clinic. A month after the incident, we had gone to the Joburg Zoo, and planned to have a picnic at Zoo Lake afterwards. We had walked quite far, and were sitting on some steps having bought a cold drink, when she took my hand. As soon as I looked at her, I realized that something was wrong. Although she was not crying, the look on her face was almost the same as the first time I ever spoke to her. She breathed deeply.
Tristan, there's something I need to tell you.
I tried to respond, but she stopped me.
Please don't interrupt me. Once I have finished, then you can respond. Okay?
I just nodded.
I need to explain why I suffer from SID.
And so her shocking account began. She went on to tell me that her father was very well off. He owned a chain of gun shops in Joburg, Pretoria, and in the Eastern Transvaal. but he allowed his money to turn him into a real monster. He drank a lot and became really nasty once he had too much booze on board. In fact, she suspected that when her mum fell pregnant with Lana, it was not out of love. She had always thought that he indecently assaulted her mother, and that Lana was the result. Of course she had no proof, but his behavior towards her, almost since as far back as she could remember, led her to believe that he never wanted her in the first place. Neither did Lana's mother, for that matter. She hardly ever held her, or even told Lana that she loved her. She always felt that she was nothing but an embarrassment and a nuisance to both of them. They hardly had anything to do with each other, never mind her. That was until her dad started taking his drunken rage out on her. It started with him beating her up, but soon became more severe and frightening. One day she went to school with 2 black eyes, and the teacher realized that something was wrong. She phoned child welfare, who started a proper investigation. The result was that her father was arrested for child abuse. The court case was absolute hell. What was worse was that her dad's defense tried to say that she somehow egged him on, and that it was actually her fault. But her father made one big mistake. He threatened to kill Lana in the courthouse, and that made the judge realize just how bad things were. He was still serving out the sentence that they handed down to him. Lana's mum blamed it all on her, of course, and accused her of making the whole thing up, even though it was the school that started it. And then she met Jake Donahue. Lana hoped that the nightmare would finally be finished, and that they would be a proper family at last. For a year or so, it seemed as though her dream had come true, but then it started all over again. This time it was full-on rape. She was 12 the first time it happened, and when it was all over, the bastard had the nerve to tell her that she deserved it. The only response from her mother was that she insisted that she wear makeup the following day to school, so that she wouldn't be embarrassed. Never mind that she hurt like hell from the bruising that he had left, not to mention feeling dirty and downtrodden. She was more interested in saving face. For the first time in her life, Lana really hated her. By this time, her marks had dropped at school, and she had already started showing signs that she was suffering from chronic depression. The worst was the nightmares. She struggled to sleep because she was haunted by the most terrifying dreams. She used to wake up in a cold sweat, not daring to scream or make a noise for fear that her stepfather would wake up, and then there would be hell to pay. Lana also began mixing with the wrong crowd at school. They used to bunk classes and sneak into one of the old storerooms to smoke cigarettes, and sometimes even the odd joint. She knew that what she was doing was messing her life up even more, but at least for a moment she was able to free herself from the hell that she had to endure every day. By the middle of the following year, Lana had reached her limit. The situation had become so severe that she was genuinely afraid for her life. Her mum's sister, Mandy, lived on her own in Joburg. She had been married once, but her husband was killed in Southwest. She never remarried, yet she had always been more of a mother to Lana than her own mum ever was. One day, she made the decision to leave home and go and live with her. Mandy had long suspected that something was wrong, but until then she hadn't stepped in. Almost as soon as she arrived, she told her everything. At first, she was afraid her aunt wouldn't believe her, but instead Mandy went to the local police and applied for a restraining order against her stepfather. It wasn't easy, as Mandy wasn't her legal guardian, but given the circumstances, the application was approved. The most painful part was that her mother never even tried to find out where she had gone. From that point on, things slowly began to improve. However, the depression had already taken hold, as had her reliance on certain substances. She began going out at a young age, partly because most of her friends were older, and partly because she could easily pass for 18. They knew many places in Joburg, especially around Hillbrow, where they could slip away and smoke occasionally. While it helped for a short time, the after-effects were difficult and only deepened her depression. That was when she began to harm herself. On one occasion, it happened in the bath. She hurt herself so badly that she lost consciousness while lying in the hot water. If her aunt hadn't found her, she might not have survived. When she recovered, the doctor caring for her asked why she had done it. She explained that she had prayed many times, asking God to take the pain away. But it felt as though her prayers had gone unanswered, and she no longer knew how else to cope. The psychiatrist struggled to respond. At the time, there was little understanding of bipolar disorder. It was seen as a form of manic depression, and they couldn't understand how she could feel stable one day and overwhelmed the next. The medication helped keep her balanced most of the time, but because her condition was rooted in trauma, or rather, many traumatic experiences, it addressed the physical symptoms without healing the deeper emotional wounds. That was why, even then, treatment remained difficult. And it was also why she sometimes fell so deeply that she returned to self-harm. She knew she was putting herself at risk, and that one day it could be fatal. But in those moments, control felt impossible. It was almost as though she was trying to punish herself for feeling so broken. Whenever she spoke up, whether to her mum or her stepfather, her words were always turned against her until it somehow became her fault. And perhaps because of that, when her life began to unravel, she still believed she was to blame.
So now you know. If this changes the way you feel about me, knowing that I'm damaged goods, I'll understand. All I ask is that you're honest with me.
At first I was too shocked and overwhelmed to respond. I buried my face in my arms and shook my head in utter dismay. I knew that child abuse was rife, but had never expected that I would actually meet someone who had gone through the hell that it causes. I could not believe that a father could stoop so low as to inflict this kind of suffering on his own daughter, and that a mother could turn a blind eye to what was going on. My family had always been very close, so this kind of thing was somewhat alien to me. After a long time I gathered myself together, and put my hand on Lana's shoulder. It doesn't change my feelings for you, except that I think I understand you more than I did before. Like I know why we've stayed friends, even though both of us would like this friendship to become something more. I realize why you sometimes seem to be even more distant than others, and why there are days when you don't even want to talk to anyone. I get that now, but it doesn't mean that I think you're damaged goods. A lesser person would have given up a long time ago, but you survived. That makes you so much stronger than most people. She eventually managed a smile and put her hand in mine.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
The following month I was offered a job working as a stable manager outside of Pretoria. The owner had recently begun the construction of a luxury hotel, later known as the Linwood Inn. The land upon which the hotel was being built was once a farm upon which his father had raised Arab horses, one of which was the famous Rafik, a stallion that had won countless rewards all over the world. By the time I started working there, Rafik had died, but one of his progeny was still stabled there, along with his own offspring. The oldest stallion's name was Genghis, and his son was called Fihem. Both of them were worth close to R1,000,000 each, so it was rather like looking after a Porsche or a Ferrari. It had always been my dream to work with horses, having ridden for most of my life. In fact, my ambition was to become a professional rider or even a trainer. So when I was offered this job, I jumped at the opportunity. The current owner of the farm was named Pedro Nicolias. His wife used to run the stables, but she was 3 months pregnant, so they needed someone to take her place until she was ready to take up the reins once more. Even though we lived in different cities, Lana and I saw each other regularly. Either she came and stayed with me and my family in Pretoria, my father having moved to Silverton when my parents got divorced, or I would visit my mother in Randburg. Lana and I would arrange to get together from there. Although we remained the best of friends, our relationship still flourished in its own way. So much so that many of the people we knew thought that we were lovers. But then the dreaded day arrived when I had to begin my national service. I was lucky enough to have my call-up postponed from January 1985 to July of that same year, due to my contracting hepatitis 2 weeks before I was scheduled to report for duty. Otherwise Lana and I would have never met. All of the young guys from the same intake, who lived in Johannesburg, were told to report to Sturrock Park, so that the trains could take us to the various army bases throughout the country. Mine was the infantry camp at Phalaborwa in the northern Transvaal. My dad took me, and Lana came along to see me off. Both of them waited until we were told to say goodbye to our families, and congregate in our various groups, depending on where we were being deployed. Lana held onto me like she did not want me to go, while my dad stood there, his cheeks streaked with tears. As I turned to go, I waved to the both of them. "Chins up, guys. I will see you soon." Once a week during our basic training, we used to have to fall in on the parade ground so that the officers could hand out our letters from home. More often than not, they would instruct us to do 20 push-ups for every article we went up to receive. Those who were savvy enough asked the folks at home to send their letters in one envelope, rather than one at a time. My mum would include the post from Lana in her own. I always looked forward to post day with great anticipation, not only because I could catch up on the news from Civvy Street, but more importantly to hear how Lana was doing. I found that I missed her the most, and hearing from her always cheered me up. Then came our first pass. I had been able to phone Lana and my family to inform them that I was going to be in Joburg for the weekend, our pass being from the Thursday to the following Monday night. My mum informed me that she was going to be away for that weekend, as she was visiting my sister in Cape Town, so I decided to stay with Lana in her flat. That weekend was very special, as it was the first time I ever saw Hillbrow at night. My school was not far from there, so we used to visit during daylight, but it was the nightlife that was legendary. We went with a group of our mutual friends on Saturday night. Although the atmosphere was unique, so was the sense of danger. Rather like certain places in New York, Hillbrow was as well known for its crime as it was for its nightclubs, so it was advisable not to visit there alone. We started at the famous Chelsea Hotel and ended up in the Warrior's Cabin. I don't recall much of the visit because I overindulged more than a little, but the following morning the sick feeling in my gut, not to mention the feeling that someone had thumped me over the head with a mallet, were painful reminders of the night before. It was not so much that I had consumed more than I used to, but because I had not touched alcohol for 3 solid months, and my ability to hold my drink had been severely diminished. Luckily we did very little the next day, so I was given an opportunity to recover before I had to report back to base on Monday. We said our goodbyes, and I hitched back to Phalaborwa. The next time I went on pass, I was devastated to find that Lana was nowhere to be found. We had arranged to meet at Joburg station because I had come down on the train this time around. When I arrived, I found that she was not there, and when I phoned her house, there was no answer. Only when I got hold of her work did I discover that she had gone down to Knysna. Later I found out that this was one of her favorite places, and that she used it as a sort of refuge whenever she felt depressed. This was mainly because there was a sort of hippie colony in the Knysna forests, and she could go there and smoke weed with little chance of getting caught. As a result, I was unable to tell her that I was going to Walvis Bay for further training, and would not be back for 2 whole months. When she found out, she wrote to me, expressing her regret at missing the opportunity for us to get together before I left. She also promised that she would let me know where she was going to be when I came down on pass. Lana said she would leave a message with the landlady at the flats, and gave me her phone number so that I could find out. The day we arrived back in Phalaborwa from Walvis Bay, Oscar Company was informed that they were going on leave for 17 days. I phoned Mrs. Hutchins, Lana's landlady, to find out where she was.
"Miss Donahue is not here, young man. She's down in Knysna."
She gave me a contact number down there, so that I could find out exactly where Lana was. I informed my parents that I would not be coming home this time, and although they expressed some disappointment, they accepted my decision. It took 2 flights and 1 bus trip to get to Knysna, but the experience was well worth it. Because there was no real accommodation available at the commune, we booked a chalet at Brenton-on-Lake for a few days. For the remainder of my visit, we camped at a site near Brenton-on-Sea. The views at both places were breathtaking, and it was like waking up to a little piece of paradise every morning. Of course, the company made it even more special. During our time together, I felt that we had grown closer than ever before. It really seemed as though we had made it to another level, a feeling that reached its peak the last day before I was due to report back to camp. We had been swimming for most of the day, but as the sun was setting, the water became too cold. So we dressed again and walked along the beach, watching the sky turn gold as the sunlight faded. We were nearly back at camp when Lana turned to me and put her hands on my shoulders. There was a smile on her face and a twinkle in her eye that I had never seen before. We embraced, and our lips came closer and closer until they finally met. Both of us laughed as though we were surprised that our relationship had come to this point. Although neither of us said the words, we knew that we loved each other. I returned to base with a new sense of hope. Hope that my life would be more complete once my national service was over. Hope that then Lana and I would be able to plan a future together. All I had to do was to get through the last year in the army, and then I felt that all my dreams would come true. This was fueled by the letters that I received from her, the contents of which seemed to have changed for the better. It appeared that her condition had improved, even to the point where her doctor no longer considered her as being a possible suicide case, and had taken her off some of the antidepressants that he had prescribed for her. One incident that threw something of a spanner in the works happened when our company had just about finished a stint in the townships. They were troubled times in South Africa, when the anti-apartheid movements had taken to the streets in places like Soweto and Alexander, as well as many other areas. I remember patrolling through one of these shanty towns, and realizing that our presence was not helping anyone. Instead, it was adding more fuel to the fires that already threatened to burn out of control. This was our first experience with active service, and was a real eye-opener, especially because we lost 2 of our comrades when the vehicle was pushed over into a river by a mob of rioters. The next shock was when we witnessed a necklacing, in which a church pastor was burnt to death along with one of his female congregants. By the time our tour of service was over, everyone in Oscar Company was on edge and looking forward to spending some time with their families before we went up to Southwest Africa. As soon as we returned to base, we were told that we were being redeployed immediately and that our leave had been cancelled. It broke my heart to tell my folks, and especially Lana, that I was not going to see them until God knows when. After a brief rest at camp, we boarded the Hercules that flew us to Ondangwa, and then on to our first border camp at a place called Inhana, situated about 9 kilometers from the border between Southwest and Angola. We remained there until October of that year, after which we finally were allowed to go home for 15 days. The first part of my visit was amazing. Lana and I finally finished our tour of the zoo. We went on a number of very special dates, and I really thought that everything in my life was just perfect. Perhaps too perfect. At the start of the second week, it seemed that Lana was having one of her relapses once again. When I called at her flat, she was sitting on the floor in tears. I asked her what was wrong.
I feel terrible. I don't know what's wrong with me.
Where do you feel sick?
I have a pain in my stomach that seems to go right through to my back. It's not like a period pain, though. I've never felt like this before. My guts have been acting up for some time now, but I put it down to the medication. That normally stuffs things up a bit, but not like this.
I helped her to bed and made a hot water bottle. She told me where she kept some medicine that had helped before, and I brought it to her. After a while, it seemed to help a little. I phoned home to say that I was staying the night with Lana, just in case she needed me. Her apartment only had 1 bedroom, so I had to make do with the couch. I thought that Lana had been able to get some sleep because there was no sound from her room, but when I went to check up on her the following morning, I was in for a horrific shock. She was lying unconscious on the floor, and the smell of puke filled the room. I called for an ambulance, and the paramedics arrived about 15 minutes later. They rushed her to the Mill Park Hospital, where she was immediately taken to the resuscitation unit. After half an hour of chaos and tension, she finally regained consciousness, much to the relief of the staff on duty, not to mention my own. Lana was admitted, and her doctor said that she wanted to run a battery of tests to find out what was wrong with her. Before I could learn the result, alas, I had to report back to base for our last border duty. This time we were stationed in Ondangwa itself. I had trained as a sapper, and it was our job to sweep the roads using mine detectors in search for landmines and other explosive devices. It was a risky job, but gave me the satisfaction that I was doing something useful towards making a difference. In the meantime, Lana's condition worsened, and she had to be rushed to hospital again. It was while she was there that she received the devastating news. She was diagnosed with phase 3 ovarian cancer. With it came the danger that the illness had already spread to other organs in her body, so she had to undergo emergency surgery to have the affected ovary removed. That was when the doctor's worst fears were realized. The cancer had gone into her liver, pancreas, as well as both small and large intestines. Even though the root cause had been eradicated, the condition was too widespread. The only option was chemotherapy, and quickly. When I heard what had happened, I begged the army to let me go home to see her. My requests were denied, and I had to stay for the remainder of our term of duty. Every day I feared that I would receive the news that she had passed away, and it drove me crazy. Things were so bad that I was removed from the platoon and confined to base. And still, in spite of my serving no purpose there anymore, the bastards still would not let me go. I was reminded of a fellow soldier with whom I had done my basics. Tony's fiancée was involved in an accident that left her in a coma. He applied for compassionate leave, a request that was also denied. He went on past 2 weeks after she had succumbed to her injuries. My biggest fear was that the same kind of thing was going to happen to me. 3 months later, my 2 years national service was finished. The whole passing out parade, and the fiasco that led up to it went by as somewhat of a blur to me, as my only thought was to see Lana again. My father drove me back to Joburg, and I went directly to her apartment. What I saw there shocked me to the very core. Because of the chemo, Lana had lost all of her hair. She wore a beanie to cover it up, and her complexion was ashen. She had dark rings under her eyes that had sunk back into their sockets. As she looked at me, there was no sparkle in them anymore, and when I took her hands, they felt as cold as though they were already dead. Gone was the warm, funny, slightly goofy person I had left 6 months earlier. To say that she was a mere shadow of her former self would have been an understatement. She was also dreadfully thin, having lived off diet milkshakes since her therapy began. Her aunt had offered to look after her, but Lana was too proud and stubborn to accept her offer. From the moment I saw her, I realized that the treatment had failed and that she was now terminal. I spoke to her doctor, who informed me that they only expected her to survive another 2 months at the most. A week and a half after I got back, Lana slipped into a coma again. They took her back to Mill Park, where she was admitted to the ICU. To honor her last request, we bought her a wig and put it on her head so that no one could see that she was bald. Although she came round briefly, Lana never really regained consciousness properly. But she was awake enough for us to at least talk to her, if only for a short time before she slipped away for the last time. Almost exactly 6 weeks after she had been admitted, Lana Donahue passed away. Somehow she knew it was going to happen a few days before, because in one of her lucid moments, she said goodbye to her aunt and I, and asked that we do not come and visit her again. Even though I knew it was inevitable, the news still came as a terrible shock to me. I guess there was still a part of me that held onto the thread, no matter how thin or how frayed it was, of hope that somehow she would pull through. It was no surprise to anyone that neither Lana's mother nor her stepfather bothered to attend her funeral, even though Aunt Mandy had invited them purely out of courtesy. The only members of her family were Mandy herself and Mandy's brother-in-law. I had met him briefly one afternoon when I went to meet Lana. He came with his wife and 2 sons. Altogether, there were only 10 people there, including a few members from the church where the service took place. Mandy was a staunch Anglican and had tried to seek counseling from the local priest for Lana. Although she never admitted it, Father Craig's advice and sympathetic ear had been of some help to her, and she respected him for trying at least. He resided over the funeral service, as well as the burial itself. I half expected him to give us some form of pseudo-spiritual message, and was pleasantly surprised with the sermon that he delivered. Naturally, he knew something of Lana's background, and thus was able to offer a great deal of comfort to those present, something that I greatly needed. This is the gist of what he said.
Often we see death as a terrifying enemy, something to be avoided at all cost. Not that we should be so morbid as to invite it in any way, but for those who are suffering, perhaps we should see it as an act of divine grace instead. Lana's life was a long tale of one horrific experience after another, the details of which I am not at liberty to relate, but those who knew her would know what I am referring to. That being said, should we not rather be grateful to the Almighty that her suffering is now over? For those of you who don't know, Lana suffered from cancer for the last year or so of her life. When she was finally diagnosed, it was all but too late. The disease had spread through most of her body. Prior to this, she struggled with bipolar disorder as well, also a most devastating condition. Now that she has left us, should we not rejoice that all that torment and illness no longer has its hold on her? She is now at peace. Although it is not easy, let us not mourn her passing more than we should. Rather, let us remember her with fondness. I didn't know her very well, but of this I am almost certain. That is what she would have wanted us to do if she was still with us. So then, let us honor our sister's last request.
She was laid to rest in West Park Cemetery. Aunt Mandy's 2 nephews placed white roses on top of her coffin, and we all threw flowers into the grave before it was finally covered up. I was the last to leave the ceremony, and I cried until my eyes stung and my throat hurt. I only went to her gravesite 4 times after that, but her memory has always haunted me since that fateful August day. Round about the 13th or 14th, I begin to feel the old sadness creep back into my soul, and I become more than a little touchy. For some years afterwards, I could not speak about Lana without bursting into tears, and even now that I have nearly completed this story in her honor, I feel the old lump form in my throat and the heaviness in my heart. This tale is not to mourn her death, as much as it is to commemorate her life. As tragic as that life was, Lana Donahue was both a fighter and a survivor. She was forced to bear far more than an average person would be capable of. I write these lines also to honor anyone else who has gone through the same level of torment. To say that you are not alone. My prayer is that you find the courage to endure whatever it is you are going through, and that one day your nightmares will end. May you find your silver lining. If this story resonates with you, please consider liking, subscribing, or sharing it with someone who may need to hear it. Your support helps keep stories like this alive.